register to choose your race. Will you win tickets to the Coca-Cola 600 with pre-race passes, the BetMGM 300, or the NC Education Lottery 200? 3 winners, first place picks first. Register by May 15th. Winners announced live on the Home Ad Show. Head on over to Harrison's, your local leader in Carhartt, Ariat, and Western wear, and tune in every Sunday to WSIC, Lake Norman's home for NASCAR.
The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here, 4 o'clock hour on a Thursday. You got 53 minutes, 25 seconds until we hit that 5 o'clock bell. I appreciate you spending that time with us here as we're giving attention to all things economic and financial. Boy, we got a full deck today. Lots going on. If you could turn on literally any news program, you look at any kind of news headline, if you're like me and you still get things that have newsprint on them, you're going to see pretty much a nonstop flow of information, data. What we try to do here is just try to sift through it a little bit. Can we make sense of what's going on? All of the constant deluge of announcements and changes that are happening economically and financially. The market's trying to guess. You get big up green days, big down red days. How do we make sense of it? That's our goal here on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. In doing so, we're going to be talking about some things in a more positive light, other things in a more negative light. As we're doing that, you recall as a previous listener that nothing that we're talking about here is intended as a specific recommendation for you. Meaning that even though we're going to be talking about some things, again, some positively, we're going to look at companies. We got quarterly earnings coming out here over the last week or so. We're going to be looking at some of the Mag 7. I know it's a great moniker, certainly good for business news headlines, and talking about their earnings. What does that mean as far as the consumer is concerned? We'll be looking at some consumer staple companies, maybe positively, maybe not so positively. But again, in doing so, nothing intended as a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold anything. Everybody's situation is unique. We strongly, strongly recommend that you reach out to your tax advisor, your financial advisor, or you're welcome to call us reach out to us at North Main Financial Group. Online, you can find us at northmainfinancial.com. That's north like the direction, Main like the street, financial.com. We have a contact page on there. Leave us an email address, a phone number, whatever is preferred and desirable for you, again, at northmainfinancial.com. You're also welcome to call us here in the studio. I can't promise you we're going to get to your particular question as far as the particular item is concerned. Like I said, we got a full deck today as far as the number of topics we're going to be hitting on. But if I can't get to it today, I promise you, Producer Reese is going to take down your question. I'll get to it next week. I promise I'll bring it up because we want things to be relevant for you. 844-STUDIO-4. That's 844-788-3464. That's 844-788-3464 here in the studio. If you'd like to leave us a question, let us know what's on your mind. Maybe something that's relevant to what the news headlines are saying. Perhaps it is personal experience. Can't give you direct personal financial advice. That's for all my compliance folks listening in. But certainly I can speak to it in broad terms and the kinds of things that we see that may be pros and cons or definitely some ideas that you want to keep in mind. Again, 844-STUDIO-4, 844-788-3464 here in the studio. All right, let's go ahead and get cruising here. Lots of stuff, as I mentioned, that's out there. Going to start macro. A lot of conversations on this in the past week or so as we had our most recently quarterly GDP, so gross domestic product report, as brought to us by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and looking at how we have grown as a country. Now, I know I'm not going to get too granular on you. I don't want to get glassy eyes and you start to fade and snooze on me here a little bit. So I promise I won't spend too much time on this. Got to talk about it, though. We had a negative GDP report, and what that means is that in large macro terms, that the economy pulled back a little bit here in this last quarter. Actually, as it's measured, it pulled back about 0.3% or negative 0.3%. Now, in looking at that, you got to take a look at a couple of pretty significant variables in there. And I'm going to bring out one in particular because this is really, I don't like to look at things so binary. Don't like to look at single variable analysis because things get squeaky pretty quick whenever you do that kind of thing. But I have to bring this out here. So we had negative GDP for the last quarter. And for all of you academic folks out there in Econ 101 or 202 folks, you know that the academic definition of a recession are two consecutive quarters of negative GDP, meaning that if we have this quarter negative GDP, then from an academic standpoint, we will be in a recession. Now, I say academic because there is absolutely a pretty widespread between the academic definition of a recession and the practical reality of enduring a recession. So I say that not to cause fear or concern or anything like that, but of course, when the negative number came out, because we think in straight lines, I had a lot of folks asking about, well, what happens if we have two negative quarters of GDP? Well, then academically we'll be in a recession. But what does that mean in terms of practical terms? It may or may not mean anything to you. Actually, in terms of your day-to-day activity, things are probably going to feel and act pretty much the same as they are currently. So not a whole lot is going to shift, but it's important in understanding where we're moving as an economy. But I need to bring out this big macro factor. So I said negative 0.3 was the GDP print here on the most recent quarter. But along with that was a significant variable variance. And I need to bring this out. Again, I don't want to get too wonky on you, but I got to bring this out. In looking at the algorithm that computes GDP either growth or pullback on a quarterly basis, there are a number of different variables involved, but one of the primary ones that sits out there are imports. And specifically with imports, without getting, again, too granular in this, when we have our import numbers, the larger the imports, the more it detracts from GDP growth. If you think about it, so we're not producing it here, we have to bring it in from somewhere else. So in the algorithm, when imports go up, generally speaking, that is a negative or a detractor on GDP. Now, because of all the tariff talk and all of the concern about what tariffs may mean for a number of different industries, there was an incredible front loading of imports here in the last quarter. Now, let me explain what that means just very, very quickly. Stay with me here. I promise. This is not going to get too boring. There were a whole lot of folks who were really concerned. Think about this. Automobile manufacturers, even to folks who are retailers for toys, thinking about the Christmas season, even 8 months out from where we are right now, 7 months out from where we are right now, concerned about the impact of tariffs, so they front-loaded or bought faster or in advance some things that they would normally wait later on in the year to buy. And the reason why this is really important is because with the front-loading, so it was actually up 140% year over year on imports. And what that means is you got a pretty negative weight that's weighing on GDP growth because of the front loading of these imports, because of concerns about tariffs later in this year. So you're going to get it's going to be very challenging to have any kind of a showing of positive GDP growth with those imports. Now let's flip it around to the other side. So, all right, so you understand we have negative GDP in the quarter. Primary reason for that is a whole lot of folks here in the U.S., or distributors here in the U.S., front-loaded their imports or took imports that they would normally make earlier or later in the year. They took them earlier. That weighed on GDP. We had a negative number. Let me tell you the math from the other side. If we would have had a normalization of imports in this past quarter, we would have had GDP growth over 3%. Now, that's very, very important to keep in mind because that's actually incredibly robust as a growth metric for that quarter. 3% annualized in one quarter is very robust, very healthy. So that's the reason why I'm bringing this out to you here, because I want you to keep that in mind. Yes, we had negative GDP in the last quarter, but the primary reason for it is because a number of distributors, number of retailers, front-loaded their imports that they would normally make later in the year. And that's very, very important to keep in mind. When I talk about data, we talk about data here on Dollars and Cents. You always got to scrape a few layers underneath it, the proverbial onion, if you will, to get an understanding of what actually is being said. Because if you just read the headline, sometimes it's easy to get carried away, get too concerned, or too euphoric. And neither one of those are very good for a financial plan. All right, folks, we're going to take a few minutes here to hear from our sponsors and for me to catch my breath. You're listening to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial here on WSIC. Back in a moment.
Make no mistake.
Did you say steak?
We'll be back to talk more finances and food on Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Well, up around 80 with a partly cloudy sky for the afternoon, but watching the weather closely heading into this evening, mostly about 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. Scattered showers and thunderstorms. A couple storms could be strong or even severe. Main concern would be for some damaging wind or possibly some hail. So watch for that. Stay weather aware. Overnight low temperatures drop into the upper 50s for your Friday. Still a chance of an isolated shower or storm. The chance is lower and dry for Mother's Day weekend. That's your forecast for the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. Ready to roll, race fans? Swing by Harrison's in Mooresville and register in person for your chance to choose your race. 3 winners. First place picks first. Will it be the Coca-Cola 600 with pre-race passes, the Bet MGM 300, or the North Carolina Education Lottery 200? Register now through May 15th at Harrison's, the Southeast leader in Carhartt, Ariat, and Western wear. Winners announced live on the Home Ad Show. Lake Norman Woolman is proud to sponsor the Mother's Day Commons Market at Birkdale Village with Shop Local QC. Join us Sunday, May 11th from 11 to 4 at the Plaza for live music. Free photos with Mom from 12 to 1 and over 30 amazing local vendors. Don't miss it. Pulp Juice and Smoothie Bar in Cornelius is open for business. Drop into 9623 Bailey Road in Cornelius for a healthy smoothie today. The 500 Club in Statesville presents live music on Saturday night with a performance by My Better Half. After the concert on Saturday, come back to the club on Sunday to celebrate with a Mother's Day brunch. Golfing, entertainment, and honoring Mom are all at the 500 Club in Statesville this weekend. Peninsula Community Foundation is holding a volunteer fair on Thursday, May 8th. Join us at Bethel Presbyterian Church in Cornelius from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. as over 20 nonprofits offer volunteer opportunities for all ages. Learn about volunteering in your community at the Volunteer Fair Thursday, May 8th at Bethel Presbyterian Church in Cornelius. From everyone here at WSIC Radio, we wish you a happy Mother's Day this Sunday. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
Don't miss the boat. Don't miss the boat, baby. Shop LKN Local for the best lake apparel, home decor, and gift ideas. Locally loved, made, and delivered right to your door. For the love of the lake, shop lkn-local.com today.
From market trends to retirement plans, Joshua Dobi has you covered. We're back with more Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Second quarter of today's show, Football Reference. Producer Reese and I were talking, as was Producer Bill, and I talking here during the break. And we moved into a discussion on the immutable fact that since we were last on the air here on Dollars and Cents, we are now exactly 1 week closer to the start of training camp for football. Exactly 1 week closer. You can check me on it. I promise you it's the case. And I probably shouldn't say that because we probably do have some NFL players who listen into Dollars and Cents here. So I don't know that they need to be constantly reminded that we are 1 week closer to training camp because they're probably still trying to heal at this, right? I mean, especially if you got deep into the playoffs. Those guys, I mean, the wear and tear, even for those super athletes, it has to be a long recovery process. And we had the NFL draft as well. Got to talk about the NFL draft. Lots of opinions about our Panthers, and got to bring in the Steelers as well for my Pittsburgh Steeler fans. That lots of opinions about positive or negative. I've seen quite a bit of both in terms of the popular media outlets, and a lot of noise about a particular quarterback from Colorado who ended up in Cleveland, but I'm not too concerned about Colorado or Cleveland here. I'm most concerned about our Panthers. Hope springs eternal. And I would also like to bounce into another immutable fact when it comes to our Carolina Panthers, that still yet even to today, we are in exactly the same probability scenario as every other team in the NFL to win the Super Bowl. Check me on it. Mathematically, I mean it really is. Starts. I mean, Producer Reese, I mean, we're still in that space, right? I mean, we are still in that space where the Carolina Panthers mathematically are in exactly the same probability scenario to win the Super Bowl as everybody else. I love it. We got a chance. It's early. Here we go. All right. Let's talk more about what's happening to us economically here. We took some time. I know, got a little glassy-eyed there in the first quarter of today's show, talking about where we are with GDP. And you're like, oh, what's that mean to me? I'm going to talk more about it, not in ways that are going to bore you to tears, I promise, but talking about how it's relevant to us. I'm going to talk a lot here as we get on in the show about some consumer data that has come across my desk. And specifically what we're seeing from the consumer spending pattern standpoint. Huge deal. I don't need to remind you, if you've listened to about, well, let's say one show here of Dollars and Cents, you hear me talk about the consumer. You hear me talk about how important the consumer is for us economically. 2/3, 3/4 of our economy, depending on how you measure it, is a function of consumer spending. Now, what that means is as the consumer spends, so we grow or don't grow as an economy. We are a consumer spending based economy. So we watch it very, very closely at North Main Financial because that again, that's one of those very key indicators in trying to understand where we are moving economically. I mean, I'll tell you one of the metrics that I use. Maybe I shouldn't say this. This might cause you to furrow your brow a little bit. There is an indicator, and I look at dozens of them, just so you know, not this next one that I'm talking about only, but it is definitely an indicator. It is, and you probably understand where I'm going with this, the Big Mac indicator. And the Big Mac indicator, so it is very binary, it's very simplistic, but there is an indicator that measures expectation of where we are going to grow economically based upon the number of Big Macs sold by McDonald's restaurants. I don't want to get too wound up in that. I don't want to say that, okay, if we're selling more Big Macs, then we're in a positive space economically. But there is something to where are folks buying? So if they're not buying Big Macs, then are they buying something more expensive? Are they buying something less expensive? I think that's important in that metric. It's not included in this metric, but the Big Mac indicator is starting to pull back a little bit. And I think that's very, very interesting, especially in conjunction with quarterly earnings from McDonald's here about a week ago. Not very positive looking forward. By the way, McDonald's, publicly traded company, Mary Charlie Daniels, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock or the bonds when it comes to McDonald's. Not very rosy. Stock took a hit. Stock took a hammer on the head as they came out with that because their quarterly earnings, yeah, I would say pretty reasonable, but their go-forward look for the balance of the calendar year, not particularly positive. And I found that to be very interesting. Let me tie another one in here. Definitely more on the discretionary spending end of things, quarterly earnings wise, even more so than when we're talking about McDonald's. I'm looking at Norwegian Cruise Line. So if you're one who is a cruiser or one who enjoys going on cruises as part of your vacation itinerary, you'll want to listen up to this. And Norwegian Cruise Line's one of the largest providers of vacation style cruises in the world. Ticker symbol Nancy Charlie Larry Henry, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock or the debt when it comes to Norwegian Cruise Lines. Very weak forward outlook. Stock took it on the head about 8% as that projection was brought out to the investing public, but a very weak forward-looking expectation for Norwegian Cruise Lines. Now, I tend to look at something like Norwegian Cruise Lines with let's call it more of a harbinger look or a preemptive look of where the economy is heading, because generally speaking, things like folks going on cruises tends to be one of the first things that's impacted. Right? Does that make sense? Meaning that you're probably going to adjust the spend on your vacation plans before you're going to stop buying groceries. I know I'm being a little bit silly with that, but think of course, right? So if things are getting a little bit tighter for you, you're going to keep buying groceries, but you're probably going to pare back on some of those fringe kinds of things. Maybe instead of going on a cruise, you take a visit to your local state park, which we have here at Lake Norman. You could definitely do that. Doesn't cost nearly as much as going on a cruise. You still get the water. Maybe you don't get the big boat, but we got plenty of pretty good sized boats here on Lake Norman, right? So you may do some things differently from a vacation standpoint. So I was very interested to see that, and especially in conjunction with some other data I'm going to be sharing you here over the next couple of minutes or so. But very interesting to see that from Norwegian Cruise Lines. Now, on the other end of the world, as far as quarterly earnings are concerned, I told you I was going to talk Mag 7 a little bit. Now, if you don't know who the Magnificent Seven are, well, that's probably a good thing, because we in this end of the media universe, we like to attach little monikers to things, catchy things, right? So you're listening to us when we're on the radio or on television. So we got this little moniker out there called the Magnificent Seven, and all it's really talking about are seven of the largest technology companies that trade publicly traded, and you know all of the names. I'm going to bring two of them up here. Going to start with Microsoft, and Microsoft, a fairly ubiquitous name. I mean, Microsoft been around for a long time here, publicly traded for about, almost 40 years. I'm just doing the math in my head. Yeah, 40 years of Microsoft's been training. My goodness. No more floppy disks, though, right? No more of those like we had when when I was growing up. You probably know how old I am now. But very positive quarter. And Microsoft has pivoted significantly from a spend standpoint, corporately, spending a tremendous amount on AI. And all of the possibilities that we surely don't know at this point, but spending a tremendous amount of capital. I'm talking billions with a B on AI and exploring their opportunities to offer up ChatGPT style service to the masses, and also infiltrating in any number of different ways into corporate and individual life, and providing that service in an ongoing and, of course, in a subscription based kind of way. Very positive quarter, though. Stock popped 5% on the news. Good to see that, certainly from a corporate standpoint, if you are one who owned the stock before that actually happened. Going to the second one here, now again, another one that's going to be very familiar to you. You may not be as familiar with the parent company name. I promise you're going to be familiar, though, with with one of their primary, or two of their primary business outlets, Meta, ticker symbol Mary Edward Tom Alpha. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the debt or the equity on that end of things. Meta, of course, is the parent or holding company of Facebook and Instagram. So two of the most widely used social media outlets in the market today. Again, very positive quarter. I mean, you look at Meta specifically, and this is my commentary here, so make sure you take it in that way, and with not just a grain, but perhaps a whole shaker of salt when you're what I'm going to say about anything in a subjective way. But certainly when you look at Meta objectively, cash flow wise, they print cash. They figured it out. And when I say they print cash, obviously that's a metaphor. But I'm talking about the ways in which they are very cash rich as a corporation. They have figured out the subscription/advertising model. Their algorithms are literally millions of variables long. They can pretty much tell you what time you're going to wake up in the morning and what you're going to eat for breakfast at this point. It's amazing. I've seen some of the algorithmic data. It is spectacular. And it is actually, I say spectacular, it's also pretty scary in terms of what they know about so many folks in terms of their habits and what they like, what they don't like, what they tend to do in a given day. Pretty amazing stuff. But that aside, from a conversational standpoint, just looking at them in terms of quarterly earnings and what they see going forward, very positive result coming from Meta, and the stock popped about 5% on the news and continues to move in a very positive way. Now, on the other side of things, and this was kind of interesting because this has been a high flyer for let's say the better part of 2 years that they have, and before the last 2 years they performed a whole lot more like kind of a stodgy pharmaceutical company and didn't have a whole lot of growth. But then they started to be one of the front runners and then one of the leaders in the GLP-1 end of the universe. You don't have to worry about what GLP-1 is outside of knowing that it is being used in voracious ways, no pun intended, as a weight loss drug. Eli Lilly is who I'm talking about here. Larry Yellow, LLY. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the debt or the equity on that end of things. They're coming out with a pill. So GLP-1s, not getting too medical here because I am certainly not a doctor or an expert in this realm, but GLP-1s most often are served to the patient either on their own or with a doctor or a medical professional with an injection. Now they're going to be coming out with something that can be taken as an oral medication or as an oral pill. So that the market initially liked that a lot. Came out with a good quarter, certainly with regards to their sale of weight loss or GLP-1 drugs. And then the stock pulled back. And I would offer up one of the reasons why the stock pulled back, subjective here. One of the reasons why the stock pulled back is that stock has been on explosive growth here over the last couple of years. Like I said, it went from stodgy pharmaceutical company to growing by tens and hundreds of percent in terms of growth here over the last couple of years. I think it was cooling off a little bit. When you're not perfect at that end of the realm, the market tends to punish you a little bit, at least in the short term. We'll see what that means going forward. All right, folks, about the halfway point of this week's Dollars and Cents show presented by North Main Financial. Hang with us here as we come back in a few moments on WSIC.
Make no mistake.
Did you say steak?
We'll be back to talk more finances and food on Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Well, up around 80 with a partly cloudy sky for the afternoon, but watching the weather closely heading into this evening, mostly about 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. Scattered showers and thunderstorms. A couple storms could be strong or even severe. Main concern would be for some damaging wind or possibly some hail. So watch for that. Stay weather aware. Overnight low temperatures drop into the upper 50s for your Friday. Still a chance of an isolated shower or storm. The chance is lower and dry for Mother's Day weekend. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Is your AC ready for summer? Don't wait for a breakdown on the hottest day of the year. Call Horn Heating and Air Conditioning for a seasonal tune-up today. Welcome home to the feeling of Visit hornhvac.com.
Hi, this is Bob McIntosh with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Since 1997, we have been committed to providing our clients with competent, caring, and experienced legal services. Learn more at McIntoshLawFirm.com.
Race fans, start your engines. Head to Harrison's in Mooresville and register to choose your race. Will you win tickets to the Coca-Cola 600 with pre-race passes, the BetMGM 300, or the NC Education Lottery 200? 3 winners, first place picks first. Register by May 15th. Winners announced live on the Home Ad Show. Head on over to Harrison's, your local leader in Carhartt, Ariat, and Western wear, and tune in every Sunday to WSIC, Lake Norman's home for NASCAR.
Hello, everyone. This is Joshua Dobi, president of North Main Financial Group. At North Main Financial Group, we move to where you need us: investment management, insurance planning, and estate strategies. No two people are the same, so we customize our planning based upon your needs. Reach out to us at northmainfinancial.com. That's northmainfinancial.com.
Prioritizing your health is one of the best ways to take care of yourself. From routine visits to the joys of pregnancy to the illnesses that stop you in your tracks, Iredell Health System will be by your side. Learn more at iredellhealth.org.
Sweetheart, would you turn it down? The neighbors can hear us. Sweetheart, the neighbors can hear this.
Ladies, if your husband's favorite TV setting is way too loud, it might be time for a hearing test. If this sounds familiar, it's time to call Beltone in Mooresville and Cornelius. Call 877-HEAR-123 today. That's 877-HEAR-123. Turn down the TV and turn up the conversation. Call 877-HEAR-123 now.
Spring has sprung, and so have the savings. Drum Landscape Supply is your go-to for mulch, stone, sand, and specialty plants. And they're offering 50 to 70% off pavers and natural stone. Your dream landscape is just one stop away. Hurry in and save big. Only at drumlandscapesupply.com.
This is Sheriff Darren Campbell with the Iredell County Sheriff's Office. Every day, scammers are targeting people right here in our community through phone calls, emails, and text messages, trying to steal your money, your personal information, and even your identity. If someone calls claiming to be from a government, a bank, or even law enforcement demanding money or personal details, stop and think. Legitimate organizations will never ask for gift cards, wire transfers, or your passwords over the phone or email. If something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. Hang up, don't click that link, and never share personal information with someone you don't trust. At the Iredell County Sheriff's Office, we're working to protect our community, and we're proud to partner with WSIC because local starts here, and keeping you informed keeps you safe. Stay alert, stay smart, and don't fall for a scam.
No radio? No worries.
Just ask Alexa to play WSIC.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. President Trump is urging Americans to go out and buy stock now. He is citing trade deals that are coming, as well as the one he announced today with the UK. The British deal includes the baseline 10% tariffs on UK goods and a reduction of auto tariffs against UK cars from 25% down to 10%. Markets are up between 1.3 and 1.9%. Fears about the economy and job security have more people eating at home. That's hitting Burger King sales, which fell in North America in the latest quarter by just over 1%. Toronto-based parent company Restaurant Brands International also saw sales slump at Tim Hortons and Popeyes. Bill Gates says he plans to give away virtually all his money within 20 years, and he will shut down the Gates Foundation in 2045. The Microsoft co-founder says there are too many urgent problems to solve for him to hold on to resources that could be helpful. I'm Nancy Lyons, Bloomberg Radio.
24/7 worldwide, non-stop.
WSIC.
Local starts here.
From market trends to retirement plans, Joshua Dobi has you covered. We're back with more Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Second half of today's show, Football Reference. Appreciate so much you hanging with us here. All right, I gave you a lot of academic stuff in the first half. I'll admit it. All right, we were cruising through some quarterly earnings. We were also talking about GDP negativity and the effect of front-loading imports. I know there's a quiz at the end of the show. Be ready for that. If you're, I'm just kidding. There's not a quiz at the end of the show. But Mamie, thankfully, by the way, Mamie, one of the hosts there on Good Morning LKN, 7 to 9 every morning, Monday to Friday. And don't worry about it. If you can't get the radio signal, get that WSIC app. You can go on Google Store, Apple Store, download that app. Doesn't matter where you are. I love it when I travel. I love it because I can just turn on the app. And thankfully, because that app is tuned towards people like me who, let's say, are not at all technologically gifted, I could just press that big button that comes up whenever I open the WSIC app, and I can listen to them. So 7 to 9, Good Morning LKN, Monday to Friday. So maybe one of the co-hosts there, she talked about her voice is one of the interludes on the breaks there, and she says not only we talk about finances, but we talk about another word that begins with the letter F. Yep, football. You're correct. One more that begins with the letter F. Yeah, it's food. Oh, we do. We love food. It's kind of one of the prerequisites. You're going to work here and you're going to be on air at WSIC. You better be a food favorite person. I mean, it's just how we work. And we just enjoy talking about food. We enjoy eating food. We enjoy listening to other people's creations about food. I mean, it's kind of baked in here. No pun intended. Here we go. Looking at Burger King. By the way, Burger King owned by Restaurant Brands International, publicly traded company. Ticker symbol is Roger Berry Indian, RBI, baseball. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the equity or the debt when it comes to Burger King. They're coming out. They got this frozen. Producer Reese, you got to chime in a little bit here. You're ready to go. All right. They're frozen strawberry or blue raspberry. I would call it a frozen drink. So let's say like a slushy style with, this is the kicker, with crunchy Nerds candy on top. So you're getting not only the refreshing, icy drink, hot day kind of thing, but if you're like me, I mean, Nerds candy been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'll admit it. I remember they used to come in those little boxes, looked about the size of a packet of cigarettes. And that, you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And those were, I'm assuming they're still popular, at least still out there. So Crunchy Nerds candy on a slushie, basically. What do you think? I mean, are you in for that? I mean, it definitely would be sweet. I mean, there's right. The sugar content there, probably enough to send your eyes at the back of your head a little bit. What do you think?
Like, I trying to choose my words
carefully.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
I could see it.
You can see it.
Yes.
All right. So you're not one who's going to give it back. You're willing to be adventurous and give it a try.
Like if someone said, "Hey, you want that?
Do you want to try this?"
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I thought it was kind of interesting because when I think of Burger King, so I'll raise my hand quickly on this, and this is probably one of the reasons why I'm not in the restaurant business. But I think of Burger King, I don't think of frozen slushy drink with Nerds candy on top. Right. So I'm thinking, of course I am. I'm thinking Whopper. You know, that's really how they're known. Or maybe they got chicken varieties as well on there. That's really where I'm going there.
I think their nuggets are underrated.
I would completely agree with that. I think all fried chicken is underrated. Frankly, I don't think you can go too high with fried chicken of any side. But I would agree. On that. Doesn't really get talked about all that much. That's why we're here. One of the reasons why we're here. So speaking of chicken, nice segue, Producer Reese. I appreciate that. KFC, one of the brands owned by Yum Brands, which, again, has one of the best ticker symbols out there if you are a restaurant/food company. I mean, if you're Yum Brands, what's your ticker symbol? You can say it with me. YUM. Yum. What a great ticker. I mean, I love that. Yellow Umbrella Mary, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock or the debt in that end of things. I mean, and I can go with this. So now we're going to get salty sweet. We're going to get savory in on this as well. They're coming back after a 5-year hiatus, chicken and waffles. Now,
this is KFC.
KFC. So 5 years ago, I don't remember this. So this is, maybe it's because it was during COVID or something like that. I wasn't paying much attention to it. But they had a chicken and waffles offering. So the KFC, obviously the old Kentucky Fried Chicken. So very, very synonymous with fried chicken of all shapes, sizes, and varieties. They have these chicken, I would strip / nugget sort of things, but then they have the waffles, so mini waffles, not the big Belgian style, but these mini waffles. So it comes in a small container with a side of maple syrup. Now, I don't know about you, but I might be able to eat chicken and waffles every single day of my life. I mean, that's
okay.
And what's nice about it, this chicken and waffles offering from KFC, I saw a picture of it online, which means it's absolutely true, that you can carry it with you. So it's an on the go kind of eating. You got the chicken you can dip in maples.
Well, I'm always eating on the go.
I mean,
so
that's
perfect.
It's true for most of us, right? In some way, shape, or form, we're eating on the go with busy lives, and so you can take the chicken, dip it in the maple syrup. You can take the waffles, dip it in the maple syrup. You can do like I would do and get 2 pieces of the waffle, put a chicken in between it, and have a waffle chicken sandwich.
There you go.
You see what I'm saying? And then dip the whole thing in the maple syrup, which I'm sure would produce a not very appealing visual for most folks. But chicken and waffles, how can you say no to that? I thought it was a great idea. And so KFC, if you're a fan, coming out with chicken and waffles. So if you're one who said, hey, I don't know why they stopped putting this on the menu, it's back. So take a look at it next time that you're out at KFC, if you're an aficionado of that kind of thing. Now, one more food item here, not that we have any, not that we don't have more food items, but one in a string here, that there was a poll taken. Now, producer Reese and I talked about this during the break here. Poll taken because I know there are some strong feelings about this, and I know that there are folks who are exceptionally brand loyal when I'm going to talk about this particular food item next, and that's true for a number of different, let's call them foundational sorts of foods. There are folks who are very brand loyal when it comes to pizza. There are folks who are very brand loyal when it comes to hamburgers. There are folks who are very brand loyal when it comes to, in the South, to grits. I mean, it's true. There's some folks who like grits done a certain way by a certain company or by a certain favorite restaurant that they have, and other folks like it done a slight. Produce, you can't not give me a thumbs down on grits. I mean, come on, we have to take your Southern card back. I
just don't like them.
Producer Reese, don't say that over the air. I mean, my gosh, they might shut us down. FCC might
get some angry comments.
We might get some bad calls coming in. I'm not going to repeat the phone number now. You never know what's going to happen. Anyhow, so a survey done on favorite. Or I shouldn't say that. Excuse me. That's not the way this was done. There was a Food and Wine. So foodandwine.com. It's a popular food website talking about all kinds of things, trends, and all that kind of stuff, news in the industry. Did an internal survey. So these are Food and Wine folks. They did an internal survey and taste testing on 13 different potato chip brands. Now, again, I know there are some folks who feel very strongly about particular brands. I know producer Reese is a Lay's classic guy, classic chip kind of thing. I mean, been around for Frito-Lay. By the way, Frito-Lay owned by Pepsi. Pepsi publicly traded. Edward Paul, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold that stock or debt. But there are folks, I mean, you got Doritos that are out there. I know very, very popular. Like, I mean, it used to be, and I'm showing my age here a little bit. It used to be there was only one kind of Doritos. So it was just the popular nacho cheese flavor. Then Cool Ranch came out. That was a big deal. So we had the red bag and the blue bag way back when. Now there got to be a dozen different kinds.
I was going to say, now you got
it's unbelievable.
Who knows how many flavors?
I mean, and they're all different bag colors. So you got fluorescent green, you got purple. I mean, it's amazing. You go through the grocery store.
It's all the brands too. Lay's,
yeah,
Doritos,
yep.
Takis.
Oh yeah, Takis. Oh my gosh, Takis are they popular? Especially in my household with my kids. Gosh, those things are popular. Anyhow,
too many flavors to keep up.
It's too much. I mean, if you go down the chip and snack aisle at the grocery store, I mean, there have to be hundreds.
Tons.
I mean, just hundreds of different possibilities there. Anyhow, three favorite ones from Food and Wine. Cape Cod kettle chips. So Cape Cod, kind of a niche brand. Kettle chips was top of the list. The second one, very interesting to me because very niche, Trader Joe's classic chips. So store brand, so not one of the big brands, but store brand Trader Joe's classic chips. And then one that, at least in my experience growing up, was, again, fairly ubiquitous, Ruffles with the ridges. Yes. So, and I know there's some strong feelings. There are some strong feelings about whether potato chips should have ridges or not. I know that some are more classic, like you, producer Reese. Other folks are saying that the ridges are the way to go, especially if you got a dip. Right, because those ridges really help with the dip end of things. So, but again, strong feelings either way. It doesn't really matter. Just enjoy them, whatever your favorite varietal may be. In looking at it, I appreciate you folks. Thanks for hanging with us here. We're getting ready to ramp into the fourth quarter of today's show. Back in a moment.
Make no mistake.
Did you say steak?
We'll be back to talk more finances and food on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Well, up around 80 with a partly cloudy sky for the afternoon, but watching the weather closely heading into this evening. Mostly about 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. Scattered showers and thunderstorms. A couple storms could be strong or even severe. Main concern would be for some damaging wind or possibly some hail. So watch for that. Stay weather aware. Overnight low temperatures drop into the upper 50s. For your Friday, still a chance of an isolated shower or storm. The chance is lower and dry for Mother's Day weekend. That's your forecast for the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. Ready to roll, race fans? Swing by Harrison's in Mooresville and register in person for your chance to choose your race. 3 winners. First place picks first. Will it be the Coca-Cola 600 with pre-race passes, the Bet MGM 300, or the North Carolina Education Lottery 200? Register now through May 15th at Harrison's, the Southeast leader in Carhartt, Ariat, and Western wear. Winners announced live on the Home Ad Show. Lake Norman Woolman is proud to sponsor the Mother's Day Commons Market at Birkdale Village with Shop Local QC. Join us Sunday, May 11th from 11 to 4 at the Plaza for live music. Free photos with Mom from 12 to 1 and over 30 amazing local vendors. Don't miss it. Pulp Juice and Smoothie Bar in Cornelius is open for business. Drop into 9623 Bailey Road in Cornelius for a healthy smoothie today. The 500 Club in Statesville presents live music on Saturday night with a performance by My Better Half. After the concert on Saturday, come back to the club on Sunday to celebrate with a Mother's Day brunch. Golfing, entertainment, and honoring Mom are all at the 500 Club in Statesville this weekend. Peninsula Community Foundation is holding a volunteer fair on Thursday, May 8th. Join us at Bethel Presbyterian Church in Cornelius from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. as over 20 nonprofits offer volunteer opportunities for all ages. Learn about volunteering in your community at the Volunteer Fair Thursday, May 8th at Bethel Presbyterian Church in Cornelius. From everyone here at WSIC Radio, we wish you a happy Mother's Day this Sunday. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
From market trends to retirement plans, Joshua Dobi has you covered. We're back with more Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial on WSIC. Local starts here.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Fourth quarter of today's show. You made it. 11 minutes, 55 seconds until we get to that 5 o'clock bell, and I appreciate so much you hanging with us here as we're talking about all things economic and financial. We even get a little bit anecdotal. We like to talk football and food here as well. We did that here in the last segment, and I got one more for you here, and actually kind of interesting. Producer Reese and I were talking during the break here and talking about food preferences in terms of how we consume things. And there are all kinds of nuances. And I'm sure if I mentioned a couple of them here, you probably even snicker to yourself and say, well, that's either me or that's, my significant other or someone in my family that does that kind of thing. But there definitely is, Producer Reese, and you highlighted this, and I think this is important. When it comes to how folks eat, there are those folks who mix it all together, and there are those folks who like to keep everything separate.
I think for me, it's just a texture.
It could be texture. I mean, I completely understand that. Or they don't want to have, say, a particular sauce or a gravy or something like that on everything.
Right.
I just want it on the piece where I want it, so they keep everything separate, and then they dip, right? As opposed to the folks who just, let's put that ketchup on everything, on every single French fry before they start, right? It's a very, very interesting nuance, right? So, I mean, we were talking pancakes here. Some people like syrup on them before they eat. Other people like to dip it in, right? French fries, the same way, right? Very.
You brought up a good point.
I mean, it's very interesting.
The ketchup on the fries.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a no-no for me.
See, that's it. See, you like it separate. So you like everything to have their place, and then you add as ready. And I know other folks, they're just unloading that ketchup bottle. I mean, before they even start. And they go out of here, but very, very interesting that folks how folks eat. It's kind of fun, right? It's all part of our dining experience when it comes to what we like and where we consume it. And I got to touch on this. Producer Reese was also mentioning this, and this is just because pizza is again so ubiquitous. It is one of the most popular foods in the country. You don't have to take my word for it. It definitely is. And there are strong feelings. I'm not going to get into the thick crust, thin crust, New York, Chicago, Detroit style. Definitely not getting into that argument because I probably just get hate mail from about 1/3 to half of you if I do. But very, very interesting in terms of how we consume pizza and what goes along with it. So you had mentioned about really enjoying potato chips, which we talked about last segment. Potato chips and pizza together, kind of that crunchy and saucy kind of combination.
The salty, kind of thing.
Additive.
Keep going with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you also mentioned, which a good friend of yours likes, and I have seen this more and more. I've even seen pizza shops offering this now, which is very interesting because 25 years ago did not exist. Very interesting. Pizza with ranch dipping sauce.
It's a lot more popular than people think.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt. And I am certainly unscientific in making that declaration. It's not like I've polled 10,000 people or anything like that. In my individual experience, though, and again, in seeing pizza shops of size and significance who are offering that as a dipping sauce, I think it's big.
I didn't know that.
It is. It's because there are, I'll get too far down the rabbit hole here, but there are all kinds of things you can do with it. Some people like to dip it in more marinara or other kinds of sauce. Some people like to do it in hot honey. I've seen that as well. But I've got to say the ranch dipping sauce thing is huge. And it falls in line with ranch dressing being literally one of the top 3 condiments in the country. I mean, it's right up there with ketchup and salsa in terms of popularity. And so kind of interesting to see that. When you said that, that's really interesting.
Some people like it, some people don't.
Yeah.
It's a 50-50.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, there are preferences. That's like I said, thick crust, thin crust, New York, Chicago, Detroit. I mean, all of it. I mean, everybody has their favorite. And even in those, so even if you get New York style, not everything's New York style. That you got to be able to sift through because then there's the one that I know on 8th Street in Brooklyn. Okay, all right, we're not in Brooklyn. But anyhow, there are all kinds of preferences and a little bit fun to talk about it here. So I appreciate your indulgence. Let's keep on the food theme, but I'm going to pivot a little bit. And I'm going to talk about consumer spending. And I'm specific. I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the show, talk a little bit about consumer spending. Want to highlight a big point here. There was a poll done by LendingTree. So LendingTree is a lender, as obviously the name suggests, primarily on the mortgage end of things and helping folks to choose purveyors for their mortgage. And
that's where my mom works.
Now that's amazing. So personal connectivity there. Yeah. I mean, they are, again, very, very well known in the lending mortgage business end of things. And they did a survey, specifically on the habits of grocery store shoppers. So they did a survey, 2,000 people. I mean, it's noteworthy in terms of their polling base on there, but wanting to understand if grocery store shoppers' habits or buying habits are changing. Now, obviously, it's a little bit of a leading question when I'm saying it that way. They didn't do that, but in terms of the style of survey that it was, are folks' habits changing? And the background or the context of that. With tariffs, with volatile market, with significantly higher prices in the grocery store than even there were a couple of years ago, are your habits changing? And the data that LendingTree pulled from this survey, again, of 2,000 folks across the country, urban, rural demographics, I mean, very, very widespread, was pretty amazing. And the big number that jumped out to me as I was sifting through the data or their survey results a little bit, 90% of folks that they surveyed have significantly changed their buying habits in the grocery store, and primarily due to price. Now, that's interesting because we were talking about just a little bit ago about how brand loyal so many folks are, right? You talked about Lay's potato chips, and I was talking about whether it was Cape Cod style potato chips or style of pizza or whatever. I mean, folks do have their brand loyalty. They like what they like. But 90% of these folks surveyed said that they're changing their buying habits at the grocery store specifically to look for things which are less expensive. Because among those 90% changing their habits, 44%, so about half of the folks who were in the change category, about 44% were going to something that was either store brand or generic brand of whatever food it was, potato chips or other kinds of shelf-stable sorts of things, soups, cereals, etc., going to generic or store brand in order to reduce their overall grocery bill. Now, I think that's significant. And I do because grocery store shopping is one of those almost panoramic sort of experiences where in some way, shape, or form, the overwhelming majority of us are exposed to grocery store shopping, right? That's how we put food on the table. It's what we have in our pantry when we snack late at night. Well, I hope you don't do that. I definitely snack late at night. But for those kinds of experiences, we're going to be connected to the grocery store experience. Now, of course, in this day and age, you don't have to go to the grocery store anymore. You can have it delivered to your front doorstep, whether it's Instacart or Amazon or any of these other services that'll bring it to you. But it certainly is part and parcel to the overwhelming majority of consumers. And so I bring that up, A, because of that reason, because it is so nearly universal in terms of our experience, and then B, to note the change in buying habits. Because you heard me say at the front end of today's show here on Dollars and Cents, the consumer drives our economy. And if the consumer is feeling squeezed or is feeling like it's tougher for them to make ends meet relative to their monthly budget, they're going to change habits. We talked about the Big Mac indicator earlier in the show, meaning the number of Big Macs that are being sold by McDonald's slowing down. And also, not very rosy quarterly outlook whenever they released their earnings report here over the last week or so. Norwegian Cruise Lines, again, very discretionary in terms of a spend. Very negative outlook here for the upcoming 12 months. So when you're putting that together, and again, I like to string variables, that, especially in order to be able to understand a trend. And then I'm looking at data like this survey from LendingTree. Again, 2,000 people isn't the whole country. I'm not trying to suggest that, but very, very. I mean, when you see, I call it superlative data. So when you see superlative data, one of two things is true. One, it's an outlier. Doesn't really hold true to the trend. It's just some kind of blip in the data accumulation process, and it doesn't really hold a whole lot of water. However, when you see superlative data next to other substantiating facts, meaning like we were talking about with McDonald's and Norwegian Cruise Lines, we've talked earlier, actually a couple of weeks ago, about Walmart having a not so rosy outlook for the next 12 months. Obviously the largest retailer in the country by a country mile, if you will. When we see their kind of, let's call it mostly pessimistic outlook about where the consumer is going to be here over the next 12 months, you add this survey onto it, other surveys which are out there, it's a cause for concern. And I'm going to bring a couple of other things as well. I'm going to talk about credit card debt here before I get back to this survey. Credit card debt right now, you have the largest number of people who are more than 90 days delinquent on their credit card payments than we've had in the last 40 years. And this was true even during the pandemic, that it wasn't this high. So you have that. We also have the largest number of 90-plus day delinquencies on auto loans. Again, we're starting to line things up here. The consumer appears to be slowing down. So in this data, again, 90% of people changing their buying habits in the grocery store, 44% of those folks are going to a store brand or a generic brand in order to reduce the bill, and 59% of those folks, so again, well more than half, almost 2/3 of those folks polled said that they are drastically, and they didn't really define this, but drastically reducing the number of times that they eat out per week, meaning that they are not eating out as much. Now, interesting anecdotal side note on that, it did say that most of the folks, meaning about 75% of the folks polled, still eat out at least once a week, which I thought was very interesting, which means, but before that, were they eating out 2 times a week, 3 times a week, 5 times a week, maybe more? Certainly possible with that end of things. But 59% said they're eating out less frequently, again, in order to be able to accommodate higher prices at the grocery store, higher prices in other aspects of their monthly budget experience. So I'm sharing that again, looking at the consumer. You hear us talk about that a lot here on Dollars and Cents when we're talking about things economic and financial, understanding where we're going economically. Now, that's where the consumer is right now. Now, if we're looking at where the market has been, just very quickly here before we get to the end of today's show, market has stabilized some. We're definitely not back to where we were. Definitely still companies like Apple, Amazon, big companies, well known, still down about 20% for the year in terms of their stock pricing. So it's definitely not, rose petals and rainbows at this point for everything, but some stabilization from the very negative experiences that we had here a couple of weeks ago. But I would offer up, and this is a little bit of a teaser because I want you to come back next week, that it's going to continue to be volatile. Still a lot of headwinds out there. Still a lot of noise in the system. A lot of things through which we have to work through, not because anything's ever perfect, but because we have to get to better pricing when it comes to the market. I appreciate so much, folks, you hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial each week here on WSIC, Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'll look forward to you coming back next week as we ramp up here on WSIC.
Serving you better than ever before. WSIC, Statesville, W290DK Mooresville, W260